back and pray, right? The power of prayer. Well, I believe in the power of prayer, but it also, doesn't it say in the Word that faith without works is dead? So we have to pray, but you have to have enough courage to get your hands dirty too. You got to have enough courage to get involved. You have to have enough courage to stand up and speak your mind. You have to have that courage. Without that courage, then all is lost. We only have one republic to keep. 90% of keeping your republic is showing up. 10% is speaking up. And yet we can't even do the 10%. I go to school boards, 2 people in the audience. I go to county commissioner meetings, 5 people in the audience. I go to township meetings, lucky if you got 1 in the audience. Why? Well, John, you know the Super Bowl. I'm trying to get ready for the Super Bowl party. You know what? Screw your Super Bowl. If you lose your republic, you're not going to have a Super Bowl. If you lose your republic, you're not going to have the freedom of religion. If you lose your republic, you're not going to have all the things that you are making priorities now in your life. Keep your republic. That should be a priority. Pray, but get your hands dirty. I love the man that can smile in trouble, that can gather strength from distress and grow brave by reflection. 'Tis the business of little minds to shrink, but he whose heart is firm and whose conscience approves his conduct will pursue his principles unto death. My own line of reasoning is to myself as straight and clear as a ray of light. Not all the treasures of the world, so far as I believe, could have induced me to support an offensive war, for I think it murder. But if a thief breaks into my house, burns and destroys my property, and kills or threatens to kill me or those that are in it, and to bind me in all cases whatsoever to his absolute will, am I to suffer it? What signifies it to me whether he who does it a king or a common man, my countryman or not my countryman, whether it be done by an individual villain or an army of them? If we reason to the root of things, we shall find no difference, neither can any just cause be assigned why we should punish in the one case and pardon in the other. I find this right now in our government, don't we? I love Judge Scalia. He did a lot of good things for us. He brought a lot of good decisions from the Supreme Court. But one of the things that he did that really bothers me is this qualified immunity. Now, it didn't start out what it has become, but what happens now is you get all these elected officials that are government actors that can violate people's rights and destroy people and just go, I got immunity. Well, we learned in history through the 700 years and the 5 genealogical documents, especially from the 1100s Charter of Liberty, that if the king isn't under the same laws as the people, it's evil and oppressive, isn't it? It's despotic. So tell me why it's different in the 21st century. Why is it different? Did the principles change? Did somehow the practice change? Sure didn't. Let them call me rebel and welcome. I get called rebel all the time. I feel no concern from it, but I should suffer the misery of devils were I to make a whore of my soul by swearing allegiance to one whose character is that of a sottish, stupid, stubborn, worthless, brutish man. I conceive likewise a horrid idea in receiving mercy from a being who at the last day shall be shrieking to the rocks and mountains to cover him, and fleeing with terror from the orphan, the widow, and the slain of America. There are cases which cannot be overdone by language, and this is one. There are persons, too, who see not the full extent of the evil which threatens them. They solace themselves with hopes that the enemy, if he succeeds, will be merciful. It is the madness of folly to expect mercy from those who have refused to do justice, and even mercy where conquest is the object is only a trick of war. The cunning of the fox is as murderous as the violence of the wolf, and we ought to guard equally against both. How's first object is, partly by threats and partly by promises, to terrify or seduce the people to deliver up their arms and receive mercy. The ministry recommended the same plan to Gage, and this is what the Tories call making their peace, a peace which passeth all understanding. Indeed, a peace which would be the immediate forerunner of a worse ruin than any we have yet thought of. Ye men of Pennsylvania, do reason upon these things. Were the back counties to give up their arms, they would fall an easy prey to the Indians, who are all armed. This perhaps is what some Tories would not be sorry for. So even at that day, it was the call of, well, give up the guns. That'll make us safe. Give up the guns. That'll make us safe. Giving up the guns will not make you safe. It will make you a slave. Were the home counties to deliver up their arms, they would be exposed to the resentment of the back counties, who would then have it in their power to chastise their defection at pleasure. And were any one state to give up its arms, that state must be garrisoned by all Howe's army of Britons and Hessians to preserve it from the anger of the rest. Mutual fear is the principal link in the chain of mutual love, and woe be to that state that breaks the compact. Howe is merciful, inviting you to barbarous destruction, and men must be either rogues or fools that will not see it. I dwell not upon the vapors of imagination. I bring reason to your ears, and in languages as plain as ABC, hold up truth to your eyes. Does everybody see the great exodus happening out of California? We're starting to see a great exodus to start in New York as well. Now, you realize California was a red state for a very long time, because it was like Michigan and Detroit, had this little tiny blue speck. But all of Northern California and most of Southern California and the west side of California, or I'm sorry, the east side of California, was all conservative. Why? Because it was agrarian. That's where a lot of the crops were being raised. But look at it now. It's so overwhelmingly blue, people can't stand it. They want to get out of there. He's talking about the same thing here. If you had a state that was going to give in to Howe and the British Army and give up their arms, then Howe would have to station himself there to protect that state against all the other states that would be pretty angry about it. So we're starting to see a lot of the same things happen again. History repeats itself, whether you want it to or not. But if you're smart enough to understand it, you know the precursors to death and destruction. I thank God that I fear not. I see no real cause for fear. I know our situation well and can see the way out of it. While our army was collected, Howe dared not risk a battle, and it is no credit to him that he decamped from the White Plains and waited a mean opportunity to ravage the defenseless Jerseys. But it is great credit to us that, with a handful of men, we sustained an orderly retreat for near 100 miles, brought off our ammunition, all our field pieces, the greatest part of our stores, and had 4 rivers to pass. None can say that our retreat was precipitate, but for we were near 3 weeks in performing it, that the country might have time to come in. Twice we marched back to meet the enemy and remained out till dark. The sign of fear was not seen in our camp, and had not some of the cowardly and disaffected inhabitants spread false alarms through the country, the Jerseys had never been ravaged. Once more we are again collected and collecting. Our new army at both ends of the continent is recruiting fast, and we shall be able to open the next campaign with 60,000 men, well armed and clothed. This is our situation, and may know it by perseverance and fortitude, we have the prospect of a glorious issue. By cowardice and submission, the sad choice of variety of evils, a ravaged country, a depopulated city, habitations without safety, and slavery without hope, our homes turned into barracks and bawdy houses for Hessians, and a future race to provide for, whose fathers we shall doubt of. Look on this picture and weep over it, and if there yet remains one thoughtless wretch who believes it not, let him suffer it unlamented. December 23rd, 1776. When we study history, we have to study it in today's context, because the human condition has not changed in 6,000 years. So when you read the crisis, we can apply much of it to America today, can't we? We've been seduced by the siren song of comfort. Rome did the same thing. When the people of Rome could keep more of their wealth and they had more time on their hands, they were more than happy to pay Caesar to do that which they should have done themselves as a duty to being a free citizen. And what happened? Rome burnt to the ground in 200 years. Burnt to the ground. It's self-evident truth. It's natural law. We have a tendency that we can keep more of the toils of our hard work, and we have more free time. We have a tendency to have we set our priorities wrong, right? Our priorities become the Super Bowl. Our priorities become that vacation, that cruise, that whatever. And we'll sit back and we'll sit in the coffee house and we'll complain about the government full time, but very few get involved. Very few. It's time for action. No different than what Thomas Paine was talking about in the crisis. Those that shriek from the call of their country now are the summertime soldier, right? That's what he started out with, the summertime soldier. There's a big difference between the summertime soldier and the wintertime patriot, right? The wintertime patriot, think of what those men went through in Valley Forge. They were freezing cold, some of them froze to death, they didn't have anything to eat, they were eating their own shoes, and yet they still crossed the Delaware and fought. And they still retreated 100 miles, going back twice to meet the enemy. Think about that. If I was to ask soldiers to do that today, they'd go, huh? What? Think about that. So when we don't take action because we're just too busy, think of what a disservice we did to those men that gave everything they had for us, not even knowing us, right? No greater gift is this, that one man would lay his life down for his friends. That's why the only heroes are buried in the cemetery. There's no such thing as a hero that's alive. Heroes are not alive. I learned that as a young private. They told us the only heroes are buried in Arlington, because the very definition of a hero is one that is willing to lay his life down for his friends. If you haven't laid your life down for anyone, you are not a hero. You might be brave, and you might deserve my respect and my admiration, but you do not deserve the title hero, period. Words have meanings, and we've got to be careful with those meanings that we spread. So, this is a very powerful writing, and I think it's something that needs to be, for us to get a good grasp on what our founding fathers went through, on what was done to bring this country to fruition. I think it's a very important article to read and study. Are there any questions, concerns, or comments?
I know noticed they didn't do any duck hunting.
No, no, the guns were not for hunting. Yeah, the guns were not for hunting.
There's a song that comes to my mind by Pink Floyd called Comfortably Numb.
Yep.
I think we've all heard it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of where we're at.
You know, the guys from Pink Floyd were ardent libertarians, which is pretty close to a constitutional conservative. Just one off. So, yeah. I like a lot of their lyrics.
Let me ask you this, where do you think the World Economic Forum is, how they're gonna be a part of the future?
They've been a part of our future since 1916, or since 1913. When we created the Federal Reserve Bank, we put ourselves in a prison, and we've been going deeper and deeper and deeper into that prison. Why? Because we didn't want to listen to what our founding fathers talked about. Thomas Jefferson, he talked about that if we ever got a central bank, that it would steal the people blind, and it would steal the country and our liberty right out from underneath us while we slumbered, and it has. Now, you remember the term conspiracy theorist? Do you know when that term came about? 1963 is when that term came about, on the death of JFK. And when people weren't believing the story that was being spread by the government, anybody that didn't believe in that was a conspiracy theorist. Okay? Those records have now been opened. Come to find out, all the conspiracy theorists were right. Everything they said was correct. Now that the records have been opened up. So, maybe the conspiracy theorists aren't wrong.
Expound on that a little bit.
It was the CIA that took Kennedy out. One of the things Kennedy was trying to do is Kennedy wanted an audit of the Federal Reserve Bank. They sure didn't want that going on. When we get to the end of this course, there's a 6-video series. When we get to video 3 talks about our central bank and the money and how it was all put together. It talks about the meeting on Jekyll Island, and how the globalists took over this country through the money, right? Rothschild himself said, "I care not who makes the laws.
There's no American.
If I control the money, I control the country." And that's exactly what's been going on. This is why in the Constitution it talks about the coinage of money, the coinage, not paper money. And when we get into that third video at the end of this course, you're going to see the great lie that was told to us. You're going to see the great lie in the 17th Amendment. You're going to see it. You're going to be shocked how this all culminates to the 20th century. And then we learn history that a lot of you have lived. And you're going to go, I didn't even see that happening. I didn't even know that was going on. Because Walter Cronkite never told me that. Right? We've got to start thinking critically. We've got to stop wanting someone to tell us what to believe, how to feel, and what to think. We've got to stop. Because that's our downfall. That's our downfall as a nation. We don't have critical thinkers anymore. Why? Because it might hurt my feelings to be called a conspiracy theorist. Right? Call me what you will. My grandfather gave me some of the best advice. He said, if they're not sitting around your kitchen table, it doesn't matter what they say about you. Forget it. And so those people that call me those names don't sit around my kitchen table. I'll guarantee you that. So I don't care what they got to say. I'll speak my mind, and I'll live by my principles, and I'll let my battle speak me. So, any other questions, concerns, comments? If not, next week is, go here, next week should be
Speech and convention.
subject on salaries. This is a great speech by Benjamin Franklin. I think this speech needs to be in all home schools, because they'll never do it in high school. But it should be in home schools where our kids should be being taught, not in the government mind control institutions that we call public school. But I'll guarantee you, you've never heard this speech before. It's a very rare speech, and it's a speech given by Benjamin Franklin. And you're going to find so much truth in it. He said there's two things that rule the hearts of man: avarice and ambition, the love of money and the love of power. He said if you create positions in this country that are both positions of profit and power, he said it won't be the gentle, peaceful men of this country that will vie for those positions. He said it will be the violent and the bold that will thrust themselves into those positions to be your rulers. He wasn't wrong. He definitely was not wrong. So that'll be a very interesting speech next week. So with that, thank you all for coming. Be careful on the way home. I brought my little library with me if anybody wants to check out any reading material. Oh, and remember, turn your phasers to stun, we come in peace. Thank you.